Hey everyone, my name is Anna White and I'm the Action and Advocacy Manager for the Hoosier Environmental Council, and this is your pre-recorded social media butterflies training. So I'm so excited that you're here, and I think it'd be fun if we just jump right in. Okay, here we go. Okay. So this is our social media butterflies training module. I want to say again how grateful and excited I am for everyone that's watching. I'm so excited for you to be here and for you to be part of our action network. So let's get started. So first, I want to start out talking about what Hoosier Environmental Council is, if you're not super familiar with us, and if you're not, totally okay. So we are a legal and legislative advocacy group for the environment in Indiana. And I say that to kind of, when people think of environmental group, they often think of people that are out picking up litter or removing invasive species from parks. And those are great things. And there's many amazing organizations in Indiana that do those things, but that's not what we do. What we do is legislative and legal advocacy, okay? So we are at the State House during the legislative session, talking to legislators. We track bills. And we have calls to action where we talk about, like, hey, we have a bill that we really like. Fill out this form to contact your senator and let them know that we really like this bill. Or, hey, fill out this form to contact your senator to let them know that we, really oppose this bill. So we do a lot of work that I would say is kind of putting Hoosiers' voices in the State House. And getting people involved in environmental legislation here in Indiana. And we also do sometimes some federal level stuff and also sometimes some more local level stuff and providing advocacy support for people in their communities. So that's kind of just an overview of what we do. Now I'm going to talk about kind of our vision and our mission. So our vision is that we see in Indiana where all residents have abundant access to clean water, natural lands, pure air, and affordable clean energy. And our mission is that we lead and collaborate with diverse coalitions to achieve a healthy natural environment and thriving sustainable communities. So we're talking about working with people, we're talking about working with partner organizations, and kind of those sorts of partners to achieve our vision. But when you think about Hoosier Environmental Council and what we do, I would say our vision is probably like the most important thing to keep in mind. We're looking for clean water, we're looking for pure air, those natural lands, that affordable clean energy, and most importantly, we want everybody to have equal access to all of these great things. And so when you think about what HEC does, and when you're communicating to other people what HEC does, which you'll do as a part of this program, I would lean really heavily on what we're looking for, the Indiana we want to create. And this all comes from our strategic plan, by the way, which we've developed in the past few years. HEC is over 40 years old, and this is our first ever strategic plan. So I'm going to talk about it just for another couple slides, and then we'll move on. But here's kind of how we plan to carry out our mission in order to achieve our vision. So the first thing we're going to do is collaborate. And that means expanding our base of partnerships by identifying common goals and then joining forces with collaborators across diverse sectors of our society in pursuit of improvements that we all want to see. So that's kind of where we're coming from when we say collaborating. Communicating will be intentional in our efforts to hear and understand the diverse needs of stakeholders while thoughtfully and strategically sharing our vision, the message of our vision for Indiana. So we're going to be, talking about what we want to see in Indiana and kind of working with our partners and working with, all of our amazing members and supporters and telling them, this is what we see for Indiana. And then connecting. So we're creating opportunities for Hoosiers to connect with our work and our vision for Indiana that are as diverse as Hoosiers themselves. We recognize the need for individuals to form personal connections at varying levels and points of engagement. So that means some people might just want to read our e-newsletter. Some people might want to follow us on social media. And then some people like you might want to get even more involved by doing volunteer work for us and really getting to know the staff. And so we welcome all those forms of connecting with Hoosier Environmental Council. And it's our goal that, we connect with absolutely everyone that we possibly can, even if we're not connecting with them all at the same level. So it's kind of like, what does the person want and how can we connect with them in a way that works for their lifestyle? Um, so now we've kind of gotten through what HEC is, a little bit about our strategic plan. We're going to do introductions. So I'm going to introduce you to the three members of our comms team. Um, the reason for that is you'll be hearing from the three of us when it comes to reaching out about our calls to action or things that we want to share on and off social media. So I have myself here first. I don't know why I put myself first. I will probably be doing most of the communications with you, so you're going to hear from me the most. And this is just kind of an overview of who I am. I joined the HEC team in 2024 in December, so I've been here a little bit over a year now. I have dual bachelor's degrees in psychology and English, a master's in public affairs with a concentration in sustainability and environmental policy, which is a mouthful. And I previously held positions that involve legislative advocacy for women, writing and communications, and volunteer management. And then outside of work, I like reading, I like baking. I'm a newbie knitter, so I'm I'm learning about that. And I also enjoy hiking, but I'm kind of bad at it because I'm kind of clumsy. This is Sarah Kautzman. She's our marketing manager. She joined the HEC team as the marketing manager in late 2023. She has dual bachelor's degrees from IU Bloomington in history and mental health with a passion for sustainability and social justice. She spent most of her career in development and communications roles for organizations promoting juvenile justice, fair trade, and travel. Which is at work, you can find Sarah traveling and planning trips for others via her travel blog Suitcase 6, enjoying the outdoors, snuggling with her cat, or replicating recipes she's tried on her travels in her kitchen. Sarah's really cool. She's traveled to a lot of amazing places, and if you ever get a chance to connect with her, I highly recommend doing so. And then this is our communications director, Angela Plank. Angela has nearly 2 decades of experience using the tools of strategic communications to effectively and equitably engage diverse groups of people across public and private systems in central Indiana. From 2017 to 2025, she led strategic and crisis communications for more than 24 elected officials from local governments. She's also passionate about racial equity and crafted Indianapolis's first ever budgeting for equity protocol. In her free time, Angela enjoys speeding, theatrical productions, and spending time with her beloved Rottweiler, Lucy. And Angela's great too. And if you ever have a chance to connect with her, I would highly recommend doing so. And we're all always putting things out on social media and engaging with people in the community. So I really hope that at some point you have an opportunity to engage with at least one of us at some point, maybe even in real life at a tabling event or a HEC event or something along those lines. So let's get back to social media butterflies, the reason you're here and the reason I created this training in the first place. So social media butterflies is our little program. We built this program because we'd like to have a dedicated action network to call on to promote our calls to action. So when we talked about legislative calls to actions earlier, we were talking about what HEC is. That's part of what social media butterflies will be promoting. HEC events like our educational webinars. The reason we're also asking for event promotion is because our events are always very educational and they make people better advocates. They help people understand some of the environmental issues Indiana's facing a little bit better, so that when they see, like an article about it in the news, they're not like, coal ash, what does that mean? What does it mean when we talk about coal ash storage? What does it mean when we talk about wetlands, right? And so our events are very much geared towards everyday people that are non-environmental experts, but who care about the environment and want to be involved to create this vision of Indiana that we've kind of put forth. So some of our HEC events that I would give as an example that we might promote are like one example is on January 20th, we were at Renewable Energy Day at the State House. So we might say, hey, share that with people. It's a great chance to come to the State House. If you've never been, it's a great chance to meet with your legislators, connect with other organizations, and hear some great speakers. Another one is on January 21st, we had a data center download webinar where we talked about how AI data centers are impacting our grid, our water, and our communities. So that's one of those webinars that's going to make you, a better advocate, especially as Indiana is kind of navigating this like sudden new landscape. And then another one we have coming up, and at the time of the recording, it hasn't happened yet, is HEX 2026 mid-session webinar from 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock p.m. So if you're watching this and it's not January 30th, 2026 yet, definitely feel free to sign up for that. It's a great way to kind of touch base with us on, what we think is really important at the State House at the like kind of mid-session point. So what's died and isn't going to continue on. What is really, really great that we saw that passed? What's, something to keep an eye on? What kind of actions are we asking and what kind of engagement do we need? So those are kind of, I think if you understand maybe why we want to talk about calls to action, you can also understand why we want to promote our events, because they're really helping people become those better advocates for the environment, right? And so when we talk about social media butterflies, first we're going to talk about the what social media butterflies is, and then we're going to talk about the how. Okay. And this is an example of one of our calls to action, telling your state senator, this says tell your state senator, IN stands for innovate. And we're just kind of, I think this was our call to action on SB 277. But this is kind of what they look like. You enter in your information, and at the bottom, like this is a screenshot, but if you were to scroll down, at the bottom, there's a message box. We always have a message that we write. In the message box, you can always just send it at it as is. You can also feel free to change it and write your own message if you feel so inclined. It's up to you what ultimately is in that box when you hit the submit button. But if you are short on time, you can always just fill out your information, read over our message, and hit send. So this is a little call to action example, but let me see. And a little bit about the legislative session or events. Okay. I don't have a slide for the what, so I'm just going to talk about it in our call to action. So when we talk about what social media butterflies are doing, I want to acknowledge that a lot of you are probably doing it somewhat informally. We have created social media butterflies as a way to formalize our mobilization network and solidify our response. When it comes to things like the legislative session or even very like hyper local calls to action, things tend to move like really slow and then they move really fast. So part of what inspired this program is how can we get like the word out to a large number of people very quickly. So a lot of what we want to call on social media butterflies to do is to, spread our messages like really, really fast when need be. So, you'll get an email maybe, or in some cases it might be a text message from us saying, hey, we've got to move on this really quickly. Can you share this with your network? Whereas if you just follow us on social media, maybe you haven't checked in a few hours, maybe you haven't checked in a few days. We don't want to overwhelm absolutely everybody with emails all the time. So this is just kind of a way to make our response a little bit faster and also have that response like just be stronger in general because more people are engaged with us via your networks. I do want to acknowledge we are not going to spam you with texts or emails when we have things that need to move quickly. As a volunteer manager, I think it's kind of part of my role to make sure that you don't feel overwhelmed by this. So we're not going to be like emailing you or messaging you every single day with something new. you might find that we reach out to you a little bit more often during like the legislative session than we do in the off season, right? We have a part-time legislature here in Indiana. So on non-budget years, it's going to go from January to early March. And on budget years, it's going to go from January to April. That 2 to 4 months difference. And so during those times, you're going to find us maybe reaching out a little bit more because we have more calls to action, but we are very, very careful about not overwhelming our audience in general. And we're certainly going to be very, very careful about not overwhelming our butterflies. So I want to say that before I delve more into this, is that we're not going to, be constantly reaching out to you. This is just a way for us to organize calls to action and also like sometimes events and some other things flexibly and quickly. And our goal is to kind of have volunteers that are on call to help bolster our response, especially when things are moving quickly. Our hope for this program is that you are effectively tapping into your networks to find people who might be interested in what we're doing. So we're going to talk more about that soon. We also hope to draw new people into HEC through this program. So we will be giving this presentation to like some high schoolers and some college students and things like that. And if you're thinking, okay, I'm in, what do I need to do? We can kind of talk about that next. So call to action, we've talked about this a lot. If we give you a call to action, let's say you get a phone call or an email, hey, this is moving really quickly. We want to get a really fast response on this, but also, a really strong response. What you would probably do is fill out the call to action yourself. As somebody who markets these, I almost always forget to do that right off the bat, and I'm trying to get into a better habit of it. So I would say first and foremost, you are going to, maybe need to fill out this call to action yourself. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to reach out to your networks. How are you going to do that? Whatever social media sites that you like and you're active on, we're on pretty much all of them. Share our post about it. And when I, for example, send you an email saying, hey, we'd really like to move quickly on this call to action, it is going to have like a link to the post on every social media site that we're on, which is like Facebook, Instagram, X, Blue Sky. So you'll be able to pick whatever your social media of choice is. You'll be able to go right to that post from the email directly through the link and share it. And so that's one thing. And when you're sharing our social media posts, to promote an event or a call to action or something else, we also encourage you, if it's all you have the time for, just press the share button and like move on with your day. But if you have a couple seconds, writing out a message on why you think this is important or why it resonates with you is a really good way to kind of connect with your audience. And your network, the kinds of people that follow you on social media. So think about what might stand out to them and target your message towards that audience. So, maybe you have an audience that's really into the technical aspects of, the legislative session. So you talk about some of the more technical parts about, well, it was in the Appropriations Committee, but now it's moving to the Senate floor. Or if more likely your audience isn't excited about that kind of thing, you might give a really quick overview about like a 1-sentence overview about, hey, if this bill is passed, here's what the effect will have. This is important to me because blank. And find a way to connect with your audience. If they have kids, maybe talk about how, environmental health is a part of this bill and we want to raise our kids in a positive environment, stuff like that. So your network best. If you have a minute, find a way to, use your caption to connect with your audience. But if you don't have time, just press the share button. And we are like so grateful for you doing that as well. And then next, I would say, is you take it offline. So here's an example. I have one of the people I share our calls to action with, not through social media, is my brother. He's not as active on social media, and I don't necessarily think he's reading our e-news either. But if I text a call to action to him, he fills it out. So who are those people in your life that you know are interested in these calls of actions or would probably fill it out if you asked, but maybe aren't so active on social media? Who can we reach by a text or by an email or by a quick phone call or even talk to in person? Who can we bring into the fold that we're not necessarily going to get on social media? And I think that's part of our social media butterflies, is taking it off social media. And so that's another way you can kind of, bolster our response quickly is by reaching out to people like that. So you know you network best. Think about your message. I have a slide in here that talks about the legislative session a little bit, especially because this training, like during this training, we've talked a lot about legislative calls to action. So the first thing I want to say is you can get a link to this PDF that I have screenshotted here in the little PDF where you found all of the training information. You do not have to have a really sophisticated understanding of how a bill becomes a law. It's one of those things that we all kind of learned in sixth grade social studies and we sort of kind of get, I think. But the actual like ins and outs of the process, they're hard to remember. I know every year during the legislative session, I have to go back and look at this PDF that talks about how a bill becomes a law. You really don't have to be that well versed in it. But if you want to look this PDF over, it's really approachable, and it has a really great like graphic component where it kind of talks about, if a bill gets through here, then it goes here or it dies. And so you don't have to be able to like explain this in a really sophisticated way. But if it helps you kind of make sense of where bills are in the legislative process, familiarizing yourself with this isn't a bad idea. But again, if you're like, I don't have time for that, that's fine. We're going to craft messages that kind of take care of that portion and just say, hey, this is moved to the Senate. And most people kind of know what that means. And we're not going to go over every single little movement it's made through the first committee and then the second committee that it was reassigned to. And then it made it to the first reading. And we're going to be really casual about that. And I encourage you to be as well. But this is something you can really familiarize with yourself with. And it takes about it's like a 3-minute read. And it kind of helps. I know I return to it again and again. And if you're interested in learning a little bit more and tracking these bills a little bit more closely, that's a great resource. And I encourage you to take a look at it. And events. So I've mentioned that our events make us better advocates, but I haven't talked about them very much. So we're going to spend just a second on those. These are all pictures from some events we had in 2025. The two on the right are from our Wetland Wonders Conference that we had in October in Plymouth, Indiana, at Ancilla. And so that included a lot of really, really great speakers and tours of restored wetlands on the property. And so that was a really, really fun, it was a really fun way to become a better advocate for wetlands. And then we also had another, you can see on the left panel, we had another wetlands event. And this one was full of photographers that had taken pictures and donated their pictures of wetlands all around Indiana to us. And so we had a photo exhibition of all of these beautiful, beautiful wetland photos. And then we had a few speakers talk about, the importance of wetlands and kind of, making you a better advocate. So that was a little bit more of a low-key way to engage with our wetlands advocacy that's been really important to HEC for a long time, frankly. And so sometimes we'll ask you to share events like this. Not all of them are in person. Plenty of them are webinars. And we do try to vary the location of our events. So they're not always like in central Indiana. We try to have some in Northwest Indiana, some Southern Indiana. So when we do have in-person events, because we serve the whole state, we kind of try to vary of our locations. We are a small team, so we're not perfect, but we really do our best. And honestly, our events are always, they just blow me away. They're really, really great. So definitely be sure to check them out, and you might, share some stuff about them at some point as part of being a social media butterfly. And this is an example of, I talk about, you might share a call to action, you might share an event, or you might share something else. So this is an example of the something else. So this is a social media post that we put out, I think last November. And it was a call for photos. We use a lot of pictures of like Indiana, like Indiana, in the natural world, in our marketing. And there's only so many good stock photos of that. So we often ask our followers to send their photos in. On social media, and as well our readers through our e-news. And so this is an example of something I posted. Hey, we'd like to have some more pictures of Indiana. The theme we had for this one and for our end of year campaign in 2025 was a light shining through. So what photos depict that to you? Send them in. And then we get, beautiful results of photos in Indiana. So we always credit the people that take the photos and send them, so you can see all the names of the HEC readers and social media followers here. But this is an example of something we might ask you to promote for us outside of events and calls to action. So yeah, this is really cool. I love these. We put them on our end of year mailer. We often do them to correspond with fundraising campaigns, and it's a good time. So, okay. And then we've talked a lot about this, but just briefly before we end this here, is the why. We want to be able to formalize our action network and solidify our response, which we kind of talked about, organizing calls to action when things move quickly. Our goal is to have volunteers that are on call to bolster our response. And one thing I think is really important to remember is that we're asking you to do this. We're asking volunteers to do this so that they're really tapping into our networks to find people who might be interested in what we're doing. We're not going to create the Indiana we want to create if we don't get our friends and neighbors involved in helping us. So really, this is about bringing as many people to the table as you possibly can. And we really appreciate that you're willing to do that for us, and you're willing to be a part of this program. So if I haven't said it yet, thank you for your interest. And then we're also hoping to draw new people in. And the how. So you're going to get texts from us, you're going to get emails, and you have to think about who you can call on. But we already kind of went over that. So I'm going to skip to the end, which is thank you. Thank you so much for attending our social media butterflies training video. Thank you so much for your interest in the program. If you have any questions, any follow-up questions, please feel free to contact me, and my contact information is in that little PDF where you access this training. So thank you. I so appreciate your interest in being a volunteer, and I really hope you decide to join our ranks. Thank you so much, and have a great day.